Hello world, I'm back with the next in my series of Beatles album Anomalies. This time we're on Help and Rubber Soul. I apologise, it's slightly overdue, but I'm back here now, so here we go. I started out this series by calling it mono and stereo differences, and yes, there are mono and stereo differences. There are even differences between US and UK mixes at certain points, particularly with Help. It seems like they made their mono versions by folding down stereo mixes. But really, here there's another variable that's been introduced, and that is that this was in the 1980s, the next kind of installment in the series of CDs. They released them four at a time. So obviously we had Please Please Me with the Beatles, Hard Day's Night and For Sale. They were only released in mono. The next lot were released in stereo, and George Martin actually tweaked the stereo mixes for this. So there will be differences here between what was originally on the 65 stereos to what is now on the modern stereos, because even the '09 mixes were based off of the '87 ones, and I think that was just out of deference to George Martin. They didn't go back to the original 65 stereos because George Martin had tweaked them. In terms of generalities and generalizing, the stereo mixes of Help are very much in the same vein as Hard Day's Night and For Sale, in that you have the vocals usually sort of in the centre, and then clusters of instruments kind of around the vocals. For Rubber Soul, George Martin decided that he didn't really want to do that, because a lot of new stereo system things were coming into fashion, such as the big sideboard thing, which basically had two speakers either side of a record player and a radio, all built into one cabinet kind of thing, as a piece of furniture. They weren't particularly good. Some were better than others, obviously, especially those that had magnetic cartridges rather than the sapphire ones that were kind of around and prevalent in the 60s. But yeah, they weren't particularly good. George Martin wanted to exaggerate the stereo effect so that it would sound good on one of those. So what he did, again, now this might sound like sort of going back a few albums to the stereos of Please Please Me, but it isn't. But yes, you do have the vocals off on one side. You have clusters of instruments that are kind of spread across either their far right or their far left, but there's not a lot going on in the middle. And so it led to what I call the hole in the middle effect. It does sound a bit weird, but he was being creative. It was a creative decision to do that. He was also a bit bothered by the fact that by the mid-60s, people were starting to buy stereo records, but playing them on stereo-compatible mono record players. In other words, mono record players that had a cheap stereo cartridge, and I mean a very cheap stereo cartridge, wired in for mono. What that does is it puts anything that's in the centre like 3 decibels louder than it should be. 3 decibels doesn't sound a lot, but it's actually doubling the sound pressure levels in the middle. And so he wanted the correct balance to kind of show through if people bought a stereo mix and played it on a mono record player. So that's why we've now suddenly started getting these mixes. In terms of other technology that is being used on these albums, there isn't really a huge amount to say, except that the Beatles were spending a lot longer making their records. Now, this is not quite, oh, we spent 3 weeks making Strawberry Fields Forever, but it's indicative, it's getting there. For example, if we think about Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out, which were both recorded during the Rubber Soul sessions, it took, I think, roughly about a week to get those songs together, given that they started We Can Work It Out, I think, on the 16th of October, put it down, went back to it a week or so later. In between times, they recorded Day Tripper. Day Tripper, I think, was recorded in 3 takes. Now, 3 takes doesn't sound like it's going to take particularly long. But given that, yes, they've got to rehearse it, they will, and then once they've chosen the third take, which was the one that they went with, they then put vocal overdubs and other overdubs on top of that. So it led to one song taking up most of a day, which in 1965 terms was rather slow. Paul McCartney will tell you himself that when they first started recording, they'd get 3 or 4 songs done in a day. So yeah, it was starting to slow down. They were starting to take more care over it. They were starting to take care over their arrangements as well. All right. So in terms of editions that I have, this is the mono edition from the box set of Help. Contrary to popular opinion, these do not spell help at all in semaphore. I think they tried, but it just didn't work as a photograph, so they just went for just do something with your arms kind of thing. Photograph taken by Robert Freeman. So that's the mono box set one. One thing that bothers me, I see a lot of people on YouTube and they're keeping these things all wrapped up in their shrink wrap and stuff. I don't see that as future proofing, because I think, you know, these are the most prevalent now of the Beatles catalogue. And I would say protect your 60s copies, because those are going to get more and more valuable as time goes by. These will take longer to get valuable. Play these ones. This is my mono one. I don't have a stereo in the new 2009 series. This one is a stereo from the 70s. This is a first or second pressing mono. Here, all right, it's PMC. It's in a bit of a state. I found this for £1 in an auction room somewhere. This is interesting. This is Help, the George Martin Orchestra. So these are instrumentals of Help, but I don't think they were used in the film at all. And look how much I know about music, everybody. You know, this is not this. We're just having fun. This is a mysterious musician, everybody. It's okay. If you walked into the co-op and heard it playing on the speakers in the background, you think, oh yeah, I know that tune, that's a nice tune, but you wouldn't sort of play it and go all googly over it. This is Rubber Soul. I have got, obviously, the mono edition from the box set, but I haven't got it out, and it's buried underneath a few things at the moment, so I don't want to get it. But this one here is the stereo, and again, this is a 70s stereo edition here. All right, so this cover came about, again, it was Robert Freeman. He took the photograph in John Lennon's back garden, and he was showing them the slides, and one slide went in wonkily, and it distorted their faces. So they said, right, can we have it looking like that, please? I think it was influenced by certain substances which shall remain nameless, but which they had used by that time. They were legal by as well, because they were too new to not be. All right, this is a mono Rubber Soul, and then we're back. All right. So Help the Song is actually there's right. So Help the Song. There are actually 2 mixes of that, a mono and a stereo, and they're both completely different because John sings a different vocal line on each for whatever reason, I don't know. Okay, and I do know that the introduction was an edit piece that was edited on from the stereo onto the mono. Okay, so there's a set of guitar twiddles which leads us from the first section into the main verse, and then at the end of the choruses leads you back into the verse. All right, now those are different in stereo and mono as well, because in mono the drums cut out abruptly when you get to please, please help me. All right, and you can hear edits in the vocal lines, so it's won't you edit, please, please help edit me. In the stereo version, the drums cover up those vocal edits because they're reverbed so that their tail sort of goes throughout that whole phrase. While we're in the won't you please, please help me bit, at the end of the song as well, where we go into the coda, on the mono version, you hear John saying help, and then George and Paul, me, help, John, and it bounces back and forwards between the two of them. All right, it doesn't on the stereo version. It all sounds like they're singing that whole line together. In terms of John's vocals, you will know which one you're listening to, because in the first verse, John sings in the mono version, now I find I've changed my mind, evenly paced. All right. In the stereo version, it's more sort of rushed. Now I find I've changed my mind, like that. And also, in mono, there is only one door that is opened at the end of that verse. In stereo, he's opening up the doors. All right. And so the s on the end of doors is s for stereo. So there's a little mnemonic there. All right. In terms of actual anomalies, again, I've only really gone to the stereo versions of this, okay, and I've used What Goes On and the Usenet guide to the Beatles editions as well. But yeah, I'm saying what I hear. But anyway, so at 9 seconds, there's a faint word. It sounds like way in the left-hand side, and it's spoken. Right, that's during that twiddly bit there. And then at 25 seconds, there's a shout during Now I Find in the backing vocals, and I just wonder whether I've said it's a shout, but it could be just a squeak or a poor splice or something like that. But there's just a very weird noise at 25 seconds, which obviously you can hear in the stereo. It's on the right somewhere during Now I Find. All right, it's very obvious. The Night Before, no real mono and stereo differences to speak of there. All right, but at 43 seconds and 47 seconds, if you're tapping your fingers along with the bass, all right, you'll find that about sort of 43 seconds in, the timing becomes slightly suspect. It sounds like it was flubbed once, and then the best way to correct a flub, as it were, is to make them think that it was deliberate, so you do it again. All right, and so at 47 seconds it happens again. Okay, but it goes from this sort of dotted rhythm, dum da dum dum da dum, to dum dum, like that. Right, at 1:53 to 58, there are double tracking errors in the vocals. At 2 minutes 4 seconds, this is now, we're just going back into the first verse. Paul does actually sing Were You Telling Lies, but it sounds like he's getting confused as to whether or not he should be singing We Said Our Goodbyes the Night Before. So that first sort of were thing sounds like he's kind of saving himself from singing We Said Our Goodbyes. He's just realised at the last second that it should be Were You Telling Lies, and in fact, you know, he's saving himself from a mistake, as it were. And at 2 minutes 15 seconds, you can hear an edit to a different take for the ending. All right, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. The Beatles' Usenet variations say this sentence: the mono has a little reverb missing on the drier stereo. I still cannot make head or tail of what they mean there. Okay, because if something is drier, it means it's got less reverb on it. Mono has a little reverb missing on the drier stereo. So I actually put what? And actually, the mono is less reverberant. There are edits in the song. They're less noticeable in mono. And the anomalies are heard better. And the whole thing is more cohesive. But the stereo is more reverberant. 18 to 19 seconds, roughly. Right, this is the end of verse 1. The right-hand channel suddenly comes alive. You can hear sort of extra kind of hiss as if something's about to happen, and actually it does. The vocals change their quality from the sort of fairly soft singing in the first verse going into sort of a harder tone for the second verse, and it is definitely an edit there. Okay, now at 101 and at 118 seconds, there are odd tail ends on the tambourines in the right hand channel. So the first one you'll hear at 101 is just after Love Will Find a Way. All right, and then there's a knock, and it sounds like it's a really sort of bizarre sound, really, and an odd tail away during a tambourine hit. Whether something got hit at the same time as the tambourine, or whether he accidentally hit a different part of the tambourine, the wooden part of the tambourine, rather than the skin or not, I don't know, but it's weird there. Now, I Need You, no real differences between mono and stereo again. There are double tracking errors, okay, in the first verse on the words need you, and also at how was I to know you would upset me, okay. After how was I to know that you would upset me, there's a grunting sound on the right hand side, and then there's a clonk at 41 seconds on the right hand side as well. There's a kind of hum that comes in at 106 seconds on the left. It's been detailed on the What Goes On Anomalies site as someone singing a note to guide in the next bit of harmony, but it really doesn't sound like that to me. It sounds like there's an edit and some sort of humming noise has got in there as well during that sort of time. There's a change of tonal quality in the next verse. So in the Please Remember How I Feel About You, during Remember How, there's an edit there somewhere, okay. And then at 147, there's a skip in the guitars on the left hand before the final verse, and at 223, which is just as they're putting their guitars down and whatever, there's a click in the guitars on the left hand side. So that's just in the final chord. Now, You're Gonna Lose That Girl, I'll have to poddle over to my piano for this. Before I talk about it, John Lennon's final interview before he was shot was done with the BBC, and in it he describes his Aunt Mimi, and she asked, well, how do I know which guitar's you playing then, John? And he said, well, I detune my D strings ever so slightly, so it's ever so slightly out of tune, and then you'll know it's me. What Goes On notes that either the piano is sharp or there's a guitar that is flat, and perhaps John's referring to that. Maybe it was taken to extremes here and became a noticeable thing, but I don't know. You never know how much John exaggerates sometimes. So yeah, What Goes On notices that the guitars and pianos are slightly out of tune, but nevertheless, during the chorus at the beginning, there is a bizarre mistake. All right, now I'm going to play it in a slightly different key, but because that's the key I've got it in, but it sounds like under the second Lose That Girl, where it's really long, you're going to lose that girl, as it were. It should be an F sharp minor, but somebody plays an F sharp major chord by mistake, and it sounds really clashy. You'll just have to get used to the back of me for a second. All right. That's what it should be, with this chord here being the one we're talking about. Okay, it sounds like it's this, as in a major chord introduced as well. So it's not a particularly nice chord, and that's at 5 seconds to 7 seconds long. At 40 seconds, when John sings the line, I'm going to treat her right and then, it sounds like he's actually singing ride and then they've corrected it by splicing in a t sound, which would work in mono. Remember that these were primarily aimed at mono buyers. You wouldn't hear this t spitting out at you, but it does. 40 seconds. There is a sort of scramble. There's an edit somewhere around 1 minute 45 to 47 seconds. Okay, it's just before the final verse, all right, and it's a kind of scramble in the kick drums on the left-hand side, and it kind of goes out of time with the percussion on the right-hand side. So you get this kind of weird spaced out effect just for those split seconds before the verse comes in. Okay, so it is a different take, and John's vocals are different. They seem to come from another take as well. Then my favourite song on the whole album, and that is Tickets to Ride. Okay, now there is a difference in the tonal balances of this song between the mono, the stereo in 65 and the stereo in 87 for the CD. The mono bass was so weak even for 1965 standards. It just, for whatever reason, just didn't come out particularly well during the recording. And so, as I say, the mono just has a crap bass balance, as it were. The stereo one was improved slightly by taking that rhythm track and adding just some extra bass EQ. But what that does is it muddies up the whole thing, and it makes the treble sort of twangly guitars that are on the right hand side sound even more trebly and jingle jangly. Depending on your musical taste, you might find that a little bit much. Okay, it was improved slightly again for the 87 and 2009 mixes, but you know, again, it's trying to make a silk purse out of what was a bit of a sow's ear. Okay, the bass line itself is actually really good in Ticket to Ride, but it's just a shame that it didn't come out as well on record. Now, there are some rumours about the song not really being called Ticket to Ride, but Ticket to Rye. Just don't believe them. Rye is actually a seaside town 20 odd minutes from where I come from on the south coast. It's where Paul McCartney, ironically, has a home in a place called Peasmarsh, which is just outside of Rye. But don't believe it. Right, and also Ticket to Ride was an expression which they used in Hamburg to describe, this is Ticket to Ride, yeah, was an expression used in Hamburg to describe somebody who was clean of STDs, as it were. And obviously they might have remembered that phrase from their time in Hamburg and used it in a different sense to mean that the girl that's driving me mad is going away, yay, 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 yay. All right, so some anomalies then. All right, she said that living with me, this is the second verse, okay? She said that living with me is bringing her down. The guitar fades down on the right-hand side. That's the jingle jangle guitar, fades down. And then it comes back up again at about 42-ish seconds. And when you get to the fade up of that guitar, you get a skip in the left-hand side at 45 seconds during the drum track. Okay, so it's probably some sort of edit that's gone on there as well. At 108, this is in the I don't know why she's riding so high bit. It's just in that bar before there. All right, the tambourines change from single time to double time, so they're shaking in sort of semi-quavers, that sort of thing. They come in a couple of beats early. Whether it was meant to be a couple of beats early, or whether it was just somebody thinking, oh, there ought to be tambourines, oh, best play them, and then kind of came in too early, I don't know. But I think that there is a question mark over whether it really is a mistake. They do come in on the downbeat. Don't know why she's riding so high the second time at 158, but the first time, as I say, at 108, they come in just a little bit early. All right, now the next bit is actually really important because it's this drum beat. Right, Ringo's drum beat was described as being sort of really something quite groundbreaking at the time with these triplets, so that you've got boom, 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 and that sort of boom, boom, boom is called a triplet. It's 3 notes, played in the time that it would take to normally play 2 notes. And that was like, you know, way out at the time, especially as it's being played against a normal straight rhythm, okay, on the other instruments, okay, particularly Paul's bass, which you can't hear very well, but it's boom, 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 like that. And it's really sort of an amazingly good effect, okay, and that carries on all the way down to about 1 minute 27 seconds, when it gets to the second she said that living with me, all right, and then that drum beat changes completely, all right, just back to its normal straight pattern. Dum 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 da dum dum da dum da dum dum. I'm obviously not doing it, you know, perfectly as Ringo was doing it, but it goes back to a straight rhythm. Now again, it's been said that ne'er a take was ever aborted because of Ringo's drumming. So either the Beatles told Ringo to do it like that from the start, and it was a totally deliberate thing, or it kind of happened and was a happy accident and they liked it at the end, right? But I don't think, again, that that was actually a mistake. It's something that happens, okay? And because of, you know, Beatles mythical folklore being as it is, it's assumed that that triplet rhythm was supposed to go on throughout the whole thing, when in fact it might not have been. Okay, right before the My Baby Don't Care bit, there is a bass flub in Paul's playing. You can hear it on the left hand side. You can hear the bass at this little bit, but She Don't Care, and there's a flub there, and then it goes into My Baby Don't Care, and then the next few notes of Paul's bass, again, they stand out because they're slightly out of tune. He does pull himself back very, very quickly, but it's a flub nonetheless. And it's come because he made the mistake at the But She Don't Care bit at the end of that previous chorus. Act Naturally, beginning of side 2 of Help. There aren't, again, any mono stereo differences to be worrying about here, but I think this is a brilliant song. Ringo's upper harmonies are fantastic. There are some anomalies in it. Okay, we get to 46 seconds. This is during I Can Play the Part So Well. Okay, during that long word well, there's a funny noise, centre right. I'll play the part and I won't need rehearsing at 1 minute 33 seconds, followed by a shout on the left hand side. Now, it's not one of Ringo's kind of honey don't style shouts, I'll play another one for me, George, kind of thing that he does on a lot of his songs. This is just a shout that someone has done. Okay, now we're going to get to I Hope You'll Come and See Me in the Movies, and before that, at 1:38 seconds, you'll hear a big sniff from Ringo. There's a lovely, delicious lead guitar part leading up to the final I Hope You Come and See Me in the Movies bit, and it's fantastic. But at 1:59, you get a spoken sound during Well, I Hope You'll Come and See Me in the Movies. Okay, and I wonder whether it's Paul. All right, and then at 2 minutes 18 seconds, Ringo's harmonies get cut off. So Act Naturally, 3 syllables, Act Naturally. All I gotta do is act naturally, okay? But the harmonies, act naturally, all right? Because there's an edit. As I say, they quite often put edits towards the end to make sure that they played a decent sort of professional sounding ending to round it off all nicely and everything. And that's obviously where that edit was. Act naturally. The second syllable is missing and Lee is very quiet, so it sounds like act natch. Right, You Like Me Too Much. There are 2 pianos on this song. On the left hand side, it's a real piano and it's real fingers playing that kind of tremolo effect. On the right hand side, it's an electric piano that's been plugged into an organ speaker, and that's giving a tremolo-y effect. But at 8 seconds, there's a click as that effect is stopped. Whether or not someone's just unplugged the speaker to turn it off, or whether someone's pressed the button, I don't know, but whatever, you can hear it being turned off. Right, and that was one of the anomalies that people first spotted when the CDs came out. So, like, oh wow, it's so detailed, you can hear that click. At 47 seconds, there's a late vocal chorus entry. All right, this is George singing basically on his own. His verses are double tracked. His choruses are triple tracked with extra harmonies coming in. And Because You Like Me Too Much and I Like You at 47 seconds is actually late, okay? And you can compare that with 120, which is better. There's an abrupt cut off at the end. What Goes On the Anomalies list describes that as a pedal lifting, but I can't hear that. But it is an abrupt cut off right at the very end. All right, tell me what you see. Right, now the Usenet list says this is practically a 2-track recording from the sound of it, but it actually isn't. There are different clusters of instruments left and right. The first 3 seconds, you can hear John's voice speaking something. There's some sort of spoken thing during that first 3 seconds. It sounds like there's some reverb on his voice, so it actually occurs at 2 seconds, and then you can hear it reverbing at 3 seconds. What Goes On reports that Paul McCartney is finding his upper harmony in that same section, all right, by singing if you let, because it's if you let me take your heart, all right, something like that. And as you can hear, it's actually quite a difficult tune to get when you've got John singing his tune beneath it. So Paul is practicing that before it comes in. If you anticipate that, if you let me, you'll hear him doing it. It is there. It's really, really quiet. It's on the left-hand side. And then at 1 minute 11 seconds, there's a really strange effect. And that is da 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 da. That last da da da. There's a drum beat that hits on that downbeat, but I wonder whether or not it's been edited to go into the next bit, and then they've put some reverb on it or something, but it certainly sounds a bit weird and out of place at that point. It could be an effect, but you wonder why they would just put that effect on that one particular drum beat when in fact they don't do it the next time. Although in the same place on the second time, you can hear a voice at the centre left instead. All right, so it must obviously have been a slightly sort of problematic part of the song in terms of assembling recording from it. I've Just Seen a Face. This is another one of my favourites, and it has an absolutely superb introduction. Again, we've got these triplets being played sort of, but it is essentially a 4/4 beat, okay? So again, it's them thinking far more imaginatively. The chord progression is actually really good as well. That's kind of descending pattern in the lower part. Oh, and this is great on headphones. So stick it on headphones. At 23 seconds on the left-hand side, hear a buzz, okay? And then at 24 seconds, What Goes On reports that there are discrepancies in Paul's accent. Okay, he's trying to do a kind of hillbilly. I've just seen a face I can't forget. Falling and again, but been, which is very English, but who cares? Then we've got a superb instrumental with some pop-lops going on. Pop-a-lop, 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 pop-a-lop by Paul McCartney. And then at 1 minute 25 to 1 minute 35 seconds. This is during the repeat of the first verse. I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place where we just met. Okay, and where I've clicked my fingers, I'll do it again. Okay, I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place where we just met. Okay, you'll hear on the right hand side, really low, I think it's remnants of a harmony take that was never really meant to be included, but you can hear just a harmony, an upper harmony going on there, which sounds really cool. It actually sounds really cool, but you know, whether or not that was, oh, that got left there and it seems all right, we'll leave it, or whether or not it was there and meant to be, slightly debatable. I would go with, oh, we tried it, didn't quite work, but that bit's left there and it sounds okay, we'll leave it. Yesterday. Now, you can read through a list of anomalies where you can hear, yes, there's a creak in a chair, there's someone's bow creaking, the instruments themselves, you can hear people's fingers moving up and down the strings and that sort of thing. Yes, you can, because this is a live string quartet recording, people. If they'd been plugged directly into a desk, you might not expect to hear some of those extraneous noises. But because this is a live recording in an acoustically reverberant area, you are going to get those. So just don't worry about trying to spot all of those. What you need to be thinking about here, all right, now there's a YouTube channel called David Bennett Piano. I'll try and remember to include a link to him. In fact, I'll jot it down now, shall I? David Bennett Piano link. He will explain why the first Yesterday seems to be slightly out of tune, because he's not singing yesterday, neither is he singing yesterday, which is as it's written in the sheet music. All right, don't ignore the sheet music. The sheet music happened well after them actually releasing the record. The Beatles never wrote their music down in the sheet music, and I don't think George Martin tried to transcribe it either. They just had scribbles with lyrics and maybe the odd chord progression there, but they actually committed their chord progressions to memory. So this first note, yesterday, is coming in between the cracks. I just think Paul McCartney is just making an argument for the fact that he's broken-hearted. He's just trying to recover himself from the kind of tears that he's sort of singing about in the song. It's a very sad song, folks. And so my voice is breaking a little bit. It comes in between the cracks. It doesn't at other places. On the Beatles Ballads, which was a compilation from the 1970s, you'll hear the stereo positions inverted there. In fact, on some of these compilation albums from the 70s, there were other stereo alterations made, not necessarily for anything deliberate, may have just been a mistake or whatever, but Norwegian Wood and Girl, and I think even In My Life, have got different stereo positions there. Dizzy Miss Lizzy, this is the final song of Help. It's a great performance. It's fantastic. If that had been the Beatles playing in a bar and you listen to them, you think, what a fantastic band. But this one was one, I try not to use the excuse of we were in a rush, but I think there were deadlines to sort of adhere to. If they needed an extra song, they would just have to rush one through. Which one did we used to do, kind of thing. And it seems like, to me, they were experimenting with either Dizzy Miss Lizzy or Bad Boy, because both of those were recorded the same day. All right, Dizzy Miss Lizzy is full of mistakes. In particular, there's a double-tracked guitar solo, which I will play to you. I did that with my left hand. Should have done it with my right hand, but I was holding this. So that's essentially the riff. However, George Harrison is never quite sure when to come in. He fluffs that riff up quite a few times. By the time that we get to verse 3, which is the run and tell your mum a bit after the instrumental, it has fallen apart completely. The guitars get faded right down. You can hear them, they sound quite good, because it's 12-bar blues. You can play just about anything you like over the top of a 12-bar blues pattern, and it will sound amazing. But it just wasn't what they intended to have, so they faded it down. And those two guitar tracks are well out. So some little places to go to. 5 seconds, there's a fluff there. At 23 seconds, the main first part, as it were, is in the right-hand channel, and the first note is missing of that. So rather than it being da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's da-da-da-da-da-da. The second time he does it, okay, which is 3 seconds later, at 26 seconds, you can hear the first note in the left-hand channel and then the right-hand channel again coming in late. There's another major one at 48 seconds. Listen, it's 1 minute 20 seconds, so 1 minute 26 seconds, where the double track guitars fall apart completely during the Run and Tell Your Mama verse. And then the second time that you have the Run and Tell Your Mama verse, there's a guitar flub at 2:08. Okay, and it really is a bad one. Other anomalies to listen out for are a timing error at 41 seconds. That's where John's vocal gets cut off. Things go majorly out of time. If you're clapping the beat before 41 seconds, when you get to 41 seconds, then you suddenly find that you're changing the pace at which you're clapping at. All right, and then Come and Give Me Fever, which is the next verse, it suddenly gets pulled back into place. So possibly there was a little bit spliced in there, and then, as I say, it's Ringo who seems to sort of bring everything back into time. All right, but yeah, that's a very weird timing error and very infrequent, as it were. At 1:23 seconds, you will hear that the drums drop out. They've double tracked the drums on left and right. Okay, they seem to drop out on the right hand side from 1:23 onwards, and then you're just left with the drums on the left. And I actually think that because Bad Boy and Dizzy Miss Lizzy were recorded on the same day, I think that Bad Boy, if you're looking for a technically perfect performance, both of them were blistering. But if you're looking for a technically less errors performance, it would be Bad Boy to include at the end of Help, and it would still have made a fantastic ending for it. Right, so now we're moving on to Rubber Soul. Drive My Car. There are mono and stereo differences here. Not only are there mono and stereo differences here, but there are stereo differences between 1965 and 1987 as well. In the mono edition, there are cowbells, and they are sort of quite regular throughout the song, but they're very softly mixed. In the stereo version, 65, they are there, they are quite prominent, they are on the right-hand side. However, when you get to the chorus, Paul sings Baby You Can Drive My Car without cowbells, and then the little riff that comes after that, dun 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 dun, that has cowbells. That is kind of the pattern of the song, right? So Paul sings in the chorus without, and then the instruments give their responses with cowbells. In the 87 mix, that is cowbells all the time. So that's, you know, it's something to listen out for. At the beginning, during the introduction, on the left-hand side, you can hear a wow during that guitar solo. At 50 seconds, the What Goes On site reports a peep sound, but I think it's more likely to be a leftover guitar. As in so many of their songs, they probably tried a solo part, didn't like it, wiped it, but bits of it have leaked onto other microphones so that you can still hear remnants of them popping up. All right, that has happened so many times and will continue to happen throughout the Beatles' career. That peep sound sounds like the end of a rejected guitar take. At 1 minute 18 seconds, now this is during the instrumental, and I will play on the piano the part of the instrumental that you are listening for. It's on page 200. Okay, it's a D minor 7 A chord, okay, at least in the key that I've got it in. Right, so it's getting here. You can drive my car. On the left-hand side, it's really quiet. It's probably Paul. You will have to somehow or other exclude the right channel to hear it. Okay. Now the way I did it, because I'm not connecting these expensive speakers out of phase, I used to with an old cheaper pair that I had, but not with these ones. But what I did was I stuck my ear right to the speaker, turned the volume up, blocked my right ear, and you can hear it. Also, you can, obviously, if you just listen to one ear of your headphones, the left ear, and the word you is very, very prominent then, okay? You can drive my car. In the third verse, that's where the remnants of that guitar take are heard, probably leaking through microphones that were meant to be on other tracks. All right. And then at 1:45, there is a sort of fairly prominent bass flub by Paul. It sends the chords sort of out ever so slightly. All right. So that's Drive My Car. Norwegian Wood, not many particular anomalies, except that What Goes On reported a cough on the US mono Rubber Soul. However, it's on all mono copies of Rubber Soul, and it's after She Told Me to Sit Anywhere, cough, cough. And after It's Time for Bed, there's feedback on the stereo version. You can hear it on the left-hand channel. It's a sort of whiny sound. It's time for bed, and it goes, You Won't See Me. At 2 to 3 seconds, there is a cough in the introduction, followed by some sort of clicky sounds that sounds like someone's sort of with their lips getting ready to sing. It's quieter on the 09 mix. One thing that they did manage to fix for the 09 mix, but which is on the 87 mix, is Yet It Seems So Long, click, Girl Since You've Been Gone. It's not on the 09 mix, so don't try listening to it on Apple Music, you won't find it. And it also, Yet It Seems So Long, it slows down. Okay, so whether or not it's been edited into a take that was a bit slower, I don't know. Okay, and another 87 only click is Time After Time, You Refuse. There's a click there, 2 minutes 15 seconds. And Though the Days Are Few, They're Filled, Shout on the word filled with tears. Okay, that's at 2 minutes 32 seconds. What else have we got here? Nowhere Man. All right, this is one where the stereo between the 65 and the 8709 mixes are quite different. As I said, George deliberately panned to the extremes of left and right, leaving the centre doing nothing. And that's how Nowhere Man starts, with everything on the right-hand side, the whole chorus on the right-hand side in 65. However, in 87, he's split the tracks up so that you've now got the harmony in the centre and on the right hand side. Well, it's not quite centre, but it's further towards the centre than the 65 mix. At 19 seconds, the reverb drops after Doesn't Have a Point of View. And then at 39 seconds, I heard a cough or some sort of shout after You Don't Know What You're Missing. Okay, I've put it in brackets here because I'm not really sure. At 1:49 to 51 seconds, Paul flubs the bass. It sounds like he thinks he's about to go into a different section of the song than he should be, and he flubs it. He does get it back, but it just sounds just a little bit of a mad scrabble to get back into the right place. And then 2 minutes 7 seconds after The World Is at Your Command, la 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 la, shout. Think for yourself. The first 3 seconds, there are buzzes in the guitars on the left-hand side. At 1 minute 18 to 1 minute 19 seconds, Ringo has been playing the do what you want to do, and go where you're going to, kick, snare, kick, snare. He continues with that pattern into the next verse, although your mind's opaque. He suddenly thinks, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then he goes back to the drum pattern that's got less snares in it. So yeah, it's just, again, you know, there was ne'er a take that fell apart because of Ringo. So, you know, he managed to keep that bit together. At 2:18-ish, after the music stops, there's a rattle. However, there is also, if you listen out of phase, there is a boing on the guitar, which shouldn't be there. All right. There is also out of phase. Now, I'm going to put the link up here. It shows you what it's like out of phase at the point of the rattle. It doesn't tell you what's gone on just before that rattle, which can also be heard out of phase. All right. This is many, many years since I've heard this, but I do know that it's there. I wrote to the What Goes On email at the time and reported it. They never updated their website. This website hasn't been updated in yonks. But if you listen to the last bar, think for yourself, 'cause I won't be there with you. Dun, 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 dun. And at the last note, Jun 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 Hoi from John Lennon. Hoi! It's just John being stupid. And yes, it is there. Listen out of phase if you can. There's probably software around that will help you do that. Okay, I do describe a way of plugging in your speakers to get an out of phase effect on one of them. And that's how I heard this Hoi. That was like one of the first videos I ever made in 2008. So if you just type Anomalies into my channel search, then you'll find it. The word, the first second, very breathy. And there's a faint voice in the right-hand channel. At 30 seconds, I misunderstood. On the word misunderstood, there's a tracking error, which you can hear on the right-hand side. 42 seconds. Before 42 seconds, get yourself keyed into what's happening on the left. There's a syncopated sort of guitar stabby part. And just kind of air guitar that bit. And as you do so, when you get to 42 seconds, you'll find that one of those little stabs is missing. At 14 seconds, say the word and be like me, and you'll hear a ba in the centre. And then after that, say the word I'm thinking of, and you can hear chatter or laughter going on in the right-hand channel. You see, in this section of the song, John is really hamming up the Scouse accent. Okay, so it's the weird love, and during that, there's laughter going on. Then at 1:46, 47, it's the and the places to really listen out for the chatter are, first of all, at 1:14 up until 1:28 seconds. So you can hear that going on. You can hear them trying not to laugh at John's Scouse accent when he does it's the weird love. There is a point at 1:46 seconds where it sounds like it's the and the being sung at the same time. During the instrumental, at 2 minutes 10 seconds, there is chattering, but do ignore that chattering if you can during the instrumental and just get to the final notes that George plays. They're something like hemi, demi, semi-quavers, but they are absolutely stunning. Just this brilliant little twiddle to finish off that solo. All right, it's on the right-hand side. It's amazing. Again, we have an edit to end the song properly. What they did was overdub the word backing vocals from another tape at 2 minutes 15 seconds. And if you take your left headphone off, you will hear that it's kind of the word, it's wobbling around. Okay, it does come back into pitch very quickly, but it's there. And right at the very end, on the right hand side at 2 minutes 34 seconds, sounds like there's some yawning. Whether it is someone yawning or whether it's just some other sound, I don't know, but it sounds like a yawn. Michelle, all right, the mono US is different from the mono UK. The mono US has a longer fade out and the UK version has quieter percussion. Now, at 14 to 17 seconds, these are words that go together well. You get some fret squeaks on the right-hand side, okay, from the guitar. At 1:07, I need to. During that little bit, Paul hums a very soft note to guide in the next bit of harmony. And you'll hear that one on the left. It's like, because he's humming, all right, basically. Now, the song slows down between 2 minutes 1 second and 2 minutes 10 seconds. And what goes on are very anal in how many beats per minute it actually slows down from and to. But as that song starts to slow down, the snares change. They become much less prominent because it does edit to another take, all right? Some people have said, well, it slows down because songs often slow down at the end. They do if they slow down to an absolute ending. I will say the only words I know that you'll understand, my Michelle. Off. Everybody out. We're going home. But it doesn't do that. The slowdown is actually much earlier in the song than just like the final line. And it's also, it fades out. You're not going to get a slowdown if a song fades out. So that's why I think that that bit is totally unintentional. It does cut to another take where the drums are quieter, but they must have had some sort of issues with the speeds of their tape machines. Side 2 of Rubber Soul. What goes on? Now, Ringo is singing the lead vocal here on the left-hand side. It's the only song on the LP where the lead vocal is on the left. He's playing the drums on the left. So as distinct from Act Naturally, where it sounds like he's played the drums and then he's overdubbed his vocals onto a rhythm track, this sounds like he's playing the drums and singing at the same time. Now, whether or not that was just the effect that they wanted to give, or whether he was really doing that, I don't know. Right, so at 0.5 to 6 seconds, Ringo sings his first "What?" The chorus joins in late on Goes On. And then when you hear "In Your Heart," okay, so what goes on in your heart, you can hear Paul saying "Yip," or what goes on says it's Paul saying "Yip." It's not actually distinct, but it does sound like there's a voice on the far left. In the harmonies here, during "You Are Tearing Me Apart," which is just the next line of the first chorus, "You are tearing me apart," if you listen, there's a top line of harmony which has been there, and then it suddenly disappears after the first "t" of tearing. You are t, and then you hear the lower harmonies, and then when you get to "When You Treat Me So Unkind," that top line comes back in. So for whatever reason, they've spliced off the top line of harmonies there. At 48 seconds, the backing vocals are late again. They did it twice, as it were. Right, so that's just mimicking what happened at the beginning. At 1:11, after "In Your Mind," there's a spoken voice, which is very faint on the left. Then at 1:27, there's some obscure speech. And then at 1:29, you can hear John say, "I told you why." So it is mimicking Honey Don't and all those other songs where Ringo calls out speech and people call out speech back to him and whatever. It sounds like they deleted it, but "I told you why" was kind of left in there. And at 1:34 to 5, there's a whoop. At 1:35, during the instrumental, there are lots of spoken voices, and also during the next chorus at 2:15. At 2:32, there's a lovely bass triplet on the left-hand side, and it leads down to the end. It's fantastic. And you can hear Ringo singing "In Your Mind, In Your Mind," ×2 off mic. Girl. Really, this is just me kind of taking a little bit of issue with the What Goes On Anomalies website here. No mono stereo differences, but there is a mix of this. It's on the Beatles love songs where John's voice has been placed at the centre. So it's probably some sort of fake stereo that has been done by Parlophone and not really been documented anywhere. So my issue is really with what's going on in the right-hand channel. Now, in the right-hand channel, it's mainly vocals, but there's some sort of guitar-like instrument called a bouzouki or something, which is being used on that track. There are a few notes of it which appear in the right-hand channel. My contention is that they were there because they were supposed to be there. What Goes On calls them leaks from the other channel and makes any other kind of excuse and whatever, but I think they're supposed to be there. The reason I think they're supposed to be there is because at 50 seconds, those right-hand notes actually disappear. The right-hand channel goes dead. After all this time, I don't know why, "Ah, Girl," that's when they drop out. And then at 58 seconds, the guitar comes back. It seems that really it's the wrong way round from what it would be if this was a mistake. If it was a mistake, most of the time you would have that mistake corrected, but there might just be the odd place in the song where it's not corrected. But that channel is live. You can hear all its reverb and everything on the right-hand side all the way through the song, apart from those 8 seconds in the middle where it disappears, and then crucially, it comes back. So they're intentional notes on the right-hand side. The only other thing that I would say about this song is that the rhythm is just about impossible. I find it impossible to play the piano and get the vocals, particularly on the "She's the kind of girl who lets you down when friends are there," right, which is a swung rhythm. She's the kind of girl who lets you down, and then in the background you've got t t t t t t t t t t, and that is just impossible to keep that in time and sing the melody at the same time. So they were absolutely brilliant musicians. Okay, and just little things like that, which we take for granted, but they're actually really hard to do. You know, they actually pulled off something quite amazing when they did Girl. I'm Looking Through You has dozens of anomalies in it. The US stereo on Rubber Soul has a false start, otherwise it's the same as the UK. It's a riddle song. Phrase 1 is a question and it has an answer in phrase 2. So, I'm looking through you, phrase 1. Where did you go? Phrase 2. I thought I knew you, phrase 1. Phrase 2. What did I know? And then the kind of ending of the verse is, you don't look different, but you have changed. So it's kind of summing up the kind of questions that he's asking in the first 2 lines. 1 minute into the song, during "Why Tell Me Why Did You Not Treat Me Right," on the words "did you not," the hand claps go right out of time. Again, you just have to follow them and kind of keep the beat while they're clapping. It's quite a complicated pattern that they're doing, but if you just go tick tock, when you get to "did you not treat me right," you'll hear them go a little bit sort of crazy at that point. Then you get an edit. Love has a nasty habit, and you can hear in "has" that the "a" syllable is overlapping the new for the old. And then after "you were above me," there's some feedback in the left-hand channel, but not today. That's at 1 minute 18 seconds. 1 minute 34 seconds. There's an organ stab. It's being described as an organ stab. I think it sounds more like a sort of very distorted guitar, all right? But one of them moves right to the centre and back again, which has been corrected in the 09 mix, but is there on the 87 mix. At 1:35, there's some talking going on in the centre. At 1:36, the right-hand channel goes a bit dead, as if something's been cut out. At 1:52, right-hand side, the lead guitar is very dodgy, the notes disappear, and it's actually out of tune. And then Ringo's snares go out of time, but I don't think that would be Ringo's fault. I think, again, that's someone splicing in a different drum track, and it's slightly out of time because, and it has been spliced in, because the snares go from sounding like snares to sounding like he's playing on top of baked bean tins or something. And then at 2 minutes 19 seconds, the lead guitar becomes very random as it fades out, and the mono fades out longer, so you've got more random guitar notes to listen to on the mono version. In My Life, thankfully, has far fewer anomalies, but it does have very distinctive 87 variant in that on the 87 stereo mix, George Martin has used reverb and delay to create a new vocal track, so that you've still got the original one, but he's kind of double tracked it with extra reverb and delay on it and placed that sort of nearer the centre to make John's voice sound bigger and fill that hole in the middle. And that was, you know, kind of a trick that was used quite a lot on Rubber Soul and on Revolver as well. At 47 seconds, there's a finger snap, rustling, and sharp intake of breath on the right-hand side. In general, John's voice is very breathy, and he's causing pops on the microphone by his breath. And if you listen to that went before at 1:19 seconds as well, it really pops in your ear. At 1:09 and at 1:28 before the solo, these are stray notes on the guitar on the right hand side, just a couple. At 1:49, it sounds like there's a dodgy lead being unplugged on the left hand channel. And then at 2 minutes 12 seconds, there's more flubbing. This is just during the final falsetto in My Life. In my life. If I could sing, it would be nicer, wouldn't it? Okay, Wait has got some guitar flubs just at 48 seconds. I feel as though you ought to know that I've been good as I can be. 2 flub guitar notes. Good, guitar note 1, and then as I can be, guitar note 2, flubbed. Then there's a bump at the end of that phrase, which sounds again like a lead being disconnected. So that's all in the space of 1 second, 48 seconds and 49 seconds. If I Needed Someone, fantastic song. George is really coming to his own during 1965. He's written some absolute corkers. What Goes On asks, was George having a cigarette while he was singing? Because you can hear some inhaling on the right-hand channel. I think during the 09 thing, I think that inhaling sort of thing moves to the other side. But yeah, I doubt it. At 18 seconds, we've got the percussion that is normally been playing on the left-hand side throughout the line, you're the one that I'd be thinking of. Okay, it's normally on the left, but then there's just a few rattles of percussion on the right-hand side which come up at the end of that line. Okay, they don't come up at the corresponding points of other lines in the song. So it's just a stray bit of percussion. It's been fixed on the 09. Whether or not they've just amalgamated it into what should have been on the left, I don't know. But it's been fixed anyway. But it certainly hadn't in 1987. At 50 seconds, centre and left-hand side, I'm trying to read my writing here, there's a bump. And then at 51 seconds, before the carve your number on my wall, there's a faint yeah on the right-hand side. And then at 1:36, there's a voice saying hey in the left-hand channel. At 1:52 seconds, there's another bump, similar to 50 and 51. And then at 2 minutes 18 to 19 seconds in the final chorus, there are buzzy and squeaky guitar strings. Final track on this album is Run for Your Life. No real anomalies here. There was some over-distorted guitar which has been corrected in the 87 mix, but nothing to speak of. It's just a nice phasing in during the vocal track at the intro. Someone said something about it was John's headphone amp being picked up on the mic, but whatever, it's a nice effect. I have to say, I don't like Run for Your Life. I really don't like the words to it. It's too chauvinistic by half, even for John Lennon standards. I think he was doing a parody of an Elvis Presley song or something, but don't do a parody of an Elvis Presley song if it means that you'd rather see someone dead, goodness sake. Okay, these are the singles, B-sides and EPs, and I used the 2009 ones to listen to here. Now, Yes It Is. We're very lucky to have a stereo mix of Yes It Is. Because it was the B-side, it kind of was just recorded in mono. Someone made a stereo mix of it and then lost it. And it didn't show up until 1986 when a beer company called Heineken did a kind of special offer. You know, the sorts of things, collect 20 ring pulls and we'll send you whatever, okay? This one was collect as many ring pulls or whatever and we will send you a music tape, and as part of that music tape, it included, funnily enough, the stereo version of Yes It Is, which had disappeared for all that time. The sort of first official release of it was on the Past Masters Volume 1 in 1988. So, What Goes On points out that there are some very scrunchy harmonies here. Again, they are meant to be, they are not wrong notes. So, for instance, in the first line of verse 1, if you wear red tonight, if you're following George's voice, the word night becomes very discordant, but he does the same thing in Scarlet Were the Clothes She Wore in the next line, and the first line of every verse has that discordant note. So he's doing it on purpose, it's meant to be. Right, at 1:05 seconds, I Could Be Happy With You By My Side. The words by my side have double tracking errors. And at 1:49 seconds, there's something that I couldn't hear on the 2009 mix. So if it's there, then it's on the original Past Masters. 1:49, I Could Be Happy. There's a bump or plosive in the microphone. It's been corrected other than that. Bad Boy, which I think would have made a splendid alternative ending for Help. The Usenet guide points out that this song was made available, it's the only Beatles song that was made available in America before it was made available here. Right? Recorded 10th of May 1965, same time as Dizzy Miss Lizzie. Not released over here, was released in America on some sort of EP. We got it as part of the Beatles Oldies but Goldies. That was the first time that we got it in 66. 2 seconds. There's a very faint stray guitar note on the right-hand side. At 24 seconds, after To Learn to Read and Write, the guitar tracking is off there, or the guitar double tracking is off there. But the next phrase, it seems again like the guitar double tracking is out, but I wonder whether it is. I wonder whether it was an intentional thing. At 50 seconds, there is an edit at ooh in the vocals, okay? So he buys every rock and roll book on the magazine stands. Every time he get ooh, he's off to the jukebox man. So on this get ooh bit, that's where the edit comes from. It's very clever, but it's an edit nonetheless. So I'm wondering whether that ooh is kind of like we would use a bleep to bleep something out, and maybe, you know, he's talking about filthy dollar, you know, some money. Every time you get ooh, he's off to the jukebox man. But it is an edit that during that ooh. After get to the barber shop and get that haircut off your head at 1:50, the guitar is late and actually comes in about 2 seconds late at 1:52. And at 1:59, the guitar in the right hand side is cut off very abruptly before you gave a cocker spaniel as something, which I don't understand there, laundromat. Okay, you gave a cocker spaniel a laundromat, and the right hand guitar is cut off very abruptly during that little bit. I'm down. The Americans didn't get this this song till 1976. So in other words, they were deprived of it until 1976. It says here, during the guitar break in stereo, a second different lead guitar can just be heard as a leak or echo on the mostly silent right-hand channel. It's very obvious. There is also a second drums track present in the solo as well. If you compare it to about 119 onwards, the organ solo comes in, but there are no double track guitars or drums in that point. So they've obviously erased the double track guitars and drums at that point and then put the solo in for the organ. At 128 to 131, John's hands fly up and down his organ, matron, and you can hear his nails. Right, just 2 more songs to go now. Day Tripper. Yeah, so on the Red album and the collection of oldies, but goldies, the stereo is different in Day Tripper. At the beginning, the stereo starts on the left and jumps to the right. All the later stereo mixes have it kind of double tracked, and the Usenet thing suggests ADT, i.e. artificial double tracking. Right, okay, at 119 seconds, there's a hey in the right hand channel before a guitar solo. At 140, on the right hand side, the final note of the guitar solo is cut off very abruptly. And then there's another guitar edit 3 seconds later, because what happens is George's guitar solo is bringing the tempo right up to fever pitch, and then it suddenly cuts down back to the original riff. So, dum, da, 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 dum. And during that first iteration of the riff, you will hear that there's a glitch in it on the left hand side. Then at 1:49 and 1:55, dropouts during I Tried to Please Her. And at 2:05 to 2:06, one person sings Sunday Driver, another person sings One Day Driver. At 2:14, there's an odd noise. And at 2:40, Paul flubs the bass. Not for the first time during 1965, but you'll hear that just as the song's kind of fading out. We Can Work It Out. At 24 seconds, there's a dodgy guitar chord on the word all right. And at 26 and 27 seconds, Think of What I'm Saying. You've got think off and think of at the same time. And it is an edit. And it kind of makes this whip sound during Think of What I'm Saying. 31 seconds, Or Say Good Night. There's another edit. You can hear it on the right hand side. At 50 seconds, After Fussing and Fighting, My Friend, an organ cut chord pops up, i.e. it raises itself in level with a click during the triplet pattern. For fussing and fighting, my friend, dun 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 dun. During that bit, you'll suddenly find that there's an organ chord which comes up a lot louder and clicks, and then it goes back to the normal level again. And at 1 minute 10 seconds, If I Am Right or I Am Wrong, there's a snap on the right hand side. Compare with 1:53, which is a bit later on, where the word wrong carries over. If I am right or I am wrong, snap. The second time, if I am right or I am wrong, and he carries the word over. And that, peoples, is it. The next video, the 66 one, will be a lot shorter, simply because Revolver was the only new album that they released during 1966. There were some singles as well. I'm sorry it's taken a while to get this one out and up there, but yeah, these things happen. All right, I'll see you soon then with Revolver. All right, bye.